Welcome back, everybody. The history veteran pretty much does what it says on the tin. I'm here today just outside the town of Lydd, which is pretty much in the middle of nowhere, or on the back end of nowhere. I'm just going to pan you round that's Lydd over there in the distance, about half a mile away. And as I pan round, here are the lakes of the RSPB Dungeness Reserve, Nature Reserve, with the Twitchers Huts in the distance. Further round is Dungeness Power Station, and that is right on the coast. And then as we come around a bit further, just over that hedge line there, and my car, is Lydd Ranges. And the UK veterans amongst you will know very well Lydd Ranges, I should imagine. It's been part of British Army training for many years. Spent many times down here turning brass to lead. Sometimes, very often, a waste of ammunition because I couldn't hit a cow's arse with a banjo. Anyway, the reason I'm here, on September the 3rd, 1940, in one of the local pubs, it's now a private home, called the Rising Sun, at 9:30 in the morning, there's a knock on the door. The landlady, Mabel Cole, opens the door, and stood there is a guy who says in very broken English, "Could I have a pint of cider and some cigarettes, please?" She thought that was a bit odd. So she told him to go across the other side of the road, get his cigarettes, and then come back. He can have a pint of cider. In the meantime, so he's nipped across the road to get his fags. In the meantime, she's called the police. And I think it was an RAF policeman that turned up. And he was questioned and quickly arrested. They realised that he wasn't who he said he was. The next day, a man was seen walking across the marshes. Now, it is very open here, and if you can imagine, in 1940, everybody was on edge. The coast was the south coast was just one great big defence line, and there were quite a few military units in the area. In Lydd alone, the RAF were here at RAF Lydd, and there was a military unit here as well. I can't remember which army unit, but I know the Somerset Light Infantry were prominent in the local area, along with Royal Engineers. So the next day, saw this man walking across the marshes. He was spoken to, and he was arrested. His name was Joseph Waldberg. The guy that was arrested on the 3rd was Karl Meyer. Now, both of these have been recruited by the Abwehr, the German military intelligence, and sent across. I mean, MI5, when they came to interrogate them, must have thought they were dealing with a bunch of clowns. And in fact, through the whole war, Germany's military intelligence, their espionage side of things, they didn't do a very good job at all. Where in total contrast, ours was fantastic compared. So the Abwehr at the time, the military intelligence, ran two departments. So Roman numerals I and L and I and M. IL for Luft, IM for Marine Navy. And it was the IM department that sent these two across on Operation Lena. That was their operation for sending spies across the channel into the South UK, which they called Hummer Sud, Lobster South, or they would send them north, Hummer Nord, which is Lobster North. So they sent them across. They were very ill trained, these two guys. I mean, you would at least be told not to go to a pub at 9:30 in the morning, as the pubs really shouldn't open till 11. I know in rural areas that wasn't necessarily followed, but many a times I'm sure there was a late night lock-in in these rural pubs, especially where there were servicemen involved. Around about the same time, about 8 miles down the road in the town of West Hythe, Royal Engineer Corporal North was on guard on the Mall Tower, which is one of the many, many Martello towers that dot the south coast. A lot of them were used for defensive purposes during World War II. He saw a guy walking across the marshland, which is just sort of just inland a bit from the Mall Tower, shouted at him to stop. He stopped. He was questioned by Corporal North, wasn't happy with him, and just handed him over to the authorities. His name was Charles Kaboom, or Charles Vander Kaboom. All three of these so far were, sorry, I've been attacked by the wildlife. All three of these so far, I mean, it's laughable how badly trained these guys were for not only the way they approached. They were brought over by two fishing boats, La Mascotte and Carmel de Rose, or the Rose of Carmel and the Mascot. They were brought across saying they came from Brest to Dungeness. I mean, that's some journey. It's more likely they came straight across the channel from probably Boulogne, around that area. They then were put into small rowing boats and rowed themselves ashore. But there was a fourth man as well, Schvoord Pons. Now, all these were either of Dutch descent with German parents or born in Germany with Dutch parents. So they were a bit of a mixed match, really, and all of them had been convicted of a crime and were told, you're either going to prison or worse, or you can work for the Abwehr. And we'll put you on a boat, we'll train you, we'll put you on a boat and we'll send you across to England, where you can send back some military secrets with this big black bag and a Morse code kit. What do you do? Whether or not they would have thought about handing themselves in, that's quite possible. But when they were taken away, after they'd all been sort of spoken to locally, they were taken away to Camp 20, which was run by MI5, and they were interrogated there. After the interrogation, they were due to be tried. Now, Waldberg pleaded guilty, saying that he was a bit of a, he was a studier of the world of spying and sabotage, which is a bit strange, but maybe they haven't been given all the information, because in the early part of 1940, I think in the March, they brought out the Treason Act, which prior to that had only been, which could result in the death penalty being given, because prior to that, it only covered British citizens, not foreign nationals. Now, I don't know whether they were given bad information by the Abwehr or they just didn't care. So these four were taken to court, and over the 19th to the 22nd, don't remember, Waldberg had already pleaded guilty. Over the 19th to the 22nd of November, they were tried. Kaboom and Karl Meyer were both found guilty. Pons was acquitted. Now, his story seemed to be plausible, much the same as the others said. They'd been arrested for something, but one of their family had been taken. They were threatened with this. They didn't really know what to do. They were either going to be shot over there for looting. So he chose the option of coming over here. He was in his early 20s, as most of them were. So he was acquitted. I've not found any reference to what he did after the war. He just seems to have disappeared. On the 10th of December 1940, I don't forget that they're found in September, October, November they're tried. On the 22nd, and not 20 days later, Waldberg, Waldberg, he appealed, because what he said was he was fooled into giving a guilty plea. He was told, he said he was lied to by the policeman. His dad was poorly back home. The Germans had threatened him. He was trying to do the best by his dad. But to no avail. So Kaboom and Meyer were both hanged on the 10th of December. And a week later, on the 17th, Waldberg was hanged. All three of them were hanged at Pentonville Prison, not by Pierpoint, but he did assist on one of on the first ones on the 10th. I can't remember the name of the guy, the executioner. I just bring up Pierpoint because he was the most famous hangman of them all. Now the trials were done in camera, which means in chambers, in private basically, behind closed doors. There was a jury, didn't take them very long to convict. But those first snippets I've given you, that's not how the story unfolded. So Cole Meyer did in fact go he was the first one caught on the 3rd. He did in fact go into the pub, into the Rising Sun. And a guy that was staying there, Mr. Mansfield, he must have been a guest there because I think he lived in Maidenhead. He said in his statement, after what I was told, I followed Meyer down the road and asked him for his papers. He didn't give an adequate answer. Oh no, he gave him his passport, his Dutch passport. So Mr. Mansfield wasn't happy with that, detained him. A private citizen, detained him, took him into the police station and handed him into a sergeant tie. There were because when I first researched it, I got all these little tidbits, and then I found some documents that had been released after under the Freedom of Information Act that contradicted all my evidence. And please look into this, because I mean you might come to the same conclusion as I did, because I just felt after it that they were spies. There was no doubt about that. They were captured. They did come back come over by boat. But I think there was a bit of collusion in the witness statements. Either, people misremember all the time, but it just seemed a little bit odd to me. And to do it in camera as well, behind closed doors, I find that a bit odd. Why not make that a national thing? Have the press involved, make sure these people are being seen to get justice, British justice, and certainly with one of them being acquitted, that to me in public would say quite a lot. But it was all done behind closed doors, and like I say, some of these statements just didn't ring true, like the arrest of Meyer. So I'm not casting aspersions on anybody. I'm not saying anyone made false statements, but I just felt that something wasn't right. And because I'm not a big fan of the death penalty either. I never have been. It's one of those things that many arguments have ensued between me and my friends. Not a big fan of that at all. But have a look. See what you think. So that's me for today. It's been nice out here. It's a bit blowy. Thanks all very much for your nice comments. As I think I've said before, not all of them are great, but you can't please everybody. But I did, there was a comment this morning I felt made me chuckle. Before I say that, though, a lot of them, I see your questions, I am getting back to you. And if you've asked me something specific, if I don't know the answer, I'll go away, find someone that knows it, and I'll come back and tell you. And I know that some of you have said, oh, you know, what about this? Would you mind doing something on that? And I will try and get round to it. But this comment that was made this morning was, somebody's got a lot of time on their hands. Just the irony. Thanks, everybody. See you again.